recent research shows that 50% of Americans are lonely.
Connection is literally what AI can't replace.
This is my biggest fear, Ilana. Truly, this is my biggest fear with artificial intelligence.
I promise our kids are never too young to learn these skills. I remember I created this peace corner in my classroom, and I taught my students what I called the peace process. And y'all, you wouldn't believe what happened. All I heard was, Miss Ilana, we solved our problem in the peace corner using the peace process.
School is no longer just about academic performance. It's not even about STEM skills anymore, y'all. But with the advent of AI, there's a lot of other stuff that becomes even more important, preparing our kids, our students, our educators to thrive in their lives. To me, that's what relational intelligence is all about.
Sam, you and I have been pouring our hearts and our souls into co-creating Breathe for Change's human intelligence framework. And, we've spent thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours really focusing on these 5 layers of human intelligence. That first layer being somatic intelligence, the intelligence of our bodies. The second layer being emotional intelligence, right? Our capacity to feel. The third layer being cognitive intelligence, our capacity to think and be creative. The fourth is relational intelligence, which I am so excited to dive into today with you because you and I are obsessed with relationships and everything that has to do with them. And then the fifth, universal intelligence, right? Our connection to our greater purpose, something greater than ourselves. And so today it's about relationships, my friend, and I couldn't be more honored to have you back on the podcast. I loved talking to you about emotional intelligence in a recent episode, but today we're going to build on emotional intelligence, right? It's about the relationships between you and me, between all members of our communities, and I can't wait to dive in with you.
I am so excited to talk about relational intelligence with you, Ilana. It's a superpower of yours, certainly, and mine in many ways as well. And I can't think of something I'd rather spend an hour on. So let's dive on in. Can I start with some research that will blow your mind away?
I mean, I always want my mind to be blown. So absolutely.
So this is we'll start with something a little sad, which is recent research shows that 50% of Americans are lonely. Nearly 1 in 2 adults report feeling lonely, and we know we live in this like hyper-connected world, and that just blew my mind. That how can we be so seemingly connected and so lonely at the same time? And then there's this 80-year study that Harvard conducted over a decade ago as part of their Harvard study of adult development. And they found, after just tracking people for 80 years, that the number one predictor of fulfillment, of meaning, of life satisfaction was 5 quality relationships.
Sam, I feel so lucky because I've known you since we met on the airplane in 2008. And I would say that you are one of those people who has been just a consistent, dear friend. And the closeness that I feel to you in our friendship and in our collaboration at Breathe for Change, like it's made such a profound difference in how I experience connection in my life. And so when you say that statistic, I'm thinking about like the 5 people in my life who I'm closest to. It's like family members and best friends. And wow, like with all the technology, with the social media, it's even within the 5 closest people, we can experience so much disconnection because there's so many distractions in our lives. And today, I'm just really excited to unpack, like, what is the power of relational intelligence? Because It's through developing these 5 competencies that I believe we can address that critical issue of loneliness. And how powerful can it actually be? Like, I'm dreaming into what the future for our kids can look like if all of us learn to embody and to share relational intelligence with the people in our lives. Oh, I'm so excited to dive in with you.
I'll just name, you're one of my 5. So yeah,
I love you.
And I love that I get to work with you so closely with one of my people. So feeling very grateful for you, my friend. And for those of you listening, like, maybe take a moment and just reflect, not from a place of judgment, but like, who are your 5? Or do you have 5 or 3 or 2 or 1? And how might you invest more in your relationships, right? As kind of a non-judgmental way of just thinking about how powerful relationships and connection are. So really where we're headed in this layer of intelligence is to connection. All of our layers of intelligence, the way we've been building this curriculum, is that they culminate in a competency that is so important for educators, for students, for people to really be embodying and learning how to upskill around in a future where AI is prevalent, in a future where human intelligence is really being reimagined. And so where we're headed in relational intelligence, maybe you've guessed it, is connection. That is the culmination of proficiency, of mastering relational intelligence, is that you live a life where you feel a depth of connection with others that really deeply fulfills you.
And why I fell in love with this competency when you and I and our team were building out the human intelligence framework is because, like, connection is literally what AI can't replace. AI is and will continue to replace a ton of skills and competencies that currently and in the past we've been embodying as humans. But AI cannot take away our capacity to connect on a human level, to build close, meaningful relationships with one another, and to experience intimacy in our lives. And so, we can't necessarily experience deep connection if we don't also embody the competencies that come before it, which is why I'm really, really excited to just geek out with you, Sam, today and to unpack the 5 competencies of relational intelligence. And for those of you who aren't familiar with our human intelligence framework, who are listening, we have those 5 layers of human intelligence that I mentioned in the beginning. And within each of those 5 layers, we've developed 5 competencies. The first one is the observe competency, which in the context of relational intelligence is interpersonal awareness. And we'll talk a lot more about that. The next competency we'll dive into is the interpret competency, which is empathy. And we've expanded the definition of empathy, which Sam and I can't wait to share more on. And then the third competency is a respond competency, which is all about repairing in relationships. There's so much conflict in the world and in between people. And so how do we effectively repair with one another? And the fourth competency that we're going to dive into with you today is our relate competency. That is all about cultivating a deep sense of belonging, right? We talked about being isolated and lonely in the beginning. Well, what do we need? We need to feel like we're seen, we're valued, we're heard, and we actually belong here. And that's what that one is all about. And then the fifth and final, as Sam just talked about, is really all about connection, experiencing the depth of what's possible when we intimately connect as human beings. And so, Sam, you ready to take them on this wild ride?
Let's do it.
All right, let's start with the first competency of interpersonal awareness. So why don't you share, what do we mean by that, Sam?
Interpersonal awareness is all about tuning into the cues and dynamics between you and others. And so to break that down a little bit further, when we talk about cues, we're really talking about verbal communication and nonverbal communication. And so much research has shown that we communicate so much nonverbally, and we have a number of strategies that help really bring that to life. And then we're also talking about dynamics. Interpersonal dynamics are so complicated. In this awareness step, can you tune into what's really going on between you and this person or this group of people? And a lot of that has to do with history and historical context.
Mm-hmm. And so in our Masters of Education program at Breathe for Change, we have a bunch of different strategies that help our educators cultivate more interpersonal awareness and also, right, teach their students how to do just that as well. And when it comes to interpersonal awareness, like Sam said, so much of it is about the nuance, understanding the cues, the nonverbal gestures that people are making, tuning into that. And words still matter, right? Are we actually listening to the words that are coming out of someone else's mouth who is speaking to us? Right. And that's why one of our strategies, and the first one, is actually called Word Watcher, right? Because when we actually are in a place of mindful listening and we are tuning into someone else who is communicating with us, what are they saying? Are there words that they continue to come back to that they're repeating? Are they emphasizing particular words? If so, what tone are they using? What are they saying that has meaning here? And Word Watcher allows us to really take a step back, drop the to-do list, drop trying to advise, give feedback, and pay attention to the words coming out of someone else's mouth. And when we do that, we can actually be like, I actually think this is what's most important to them. And that kind of listening and tuning in and awareness can bring two people or groups of people closer together. That's the foundation.
I know I've been just harping on research statistics. This will be the last one, I promise, Ilana. I just want to give one more here. This is from Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, founder of Nonviolent Communication, extraordinary teacher, psychologist. What a book and framework he developed. We talk a lot about that in relational intelligence. But in his research, what he found was that accurately repeating back, simply accurately repeating back what the other person said would reduce the time that it took to arrive at a final solution in negotiations by 50%. And I just want that to sink in. We're not talking about anything all that complicated, although the simplest things are often the most powerful. But simply repeating back what the other person said can have a tremendous impact on your ability to feel connected, to feel seen, to feel heard. And that's really what that first strategy is all about.
What I'm hearing you say, Sam, is that when you mindfully listen to someone and repeat back the essence of what you heard them say, it can have tremendous positive results on people's capacity to negotiate, to make decisions, and to connect with each other. Did I get that right, Sam?
You got that right. I remember being in a coaching training many years ago and someone trying to practice this and totally bombing it. And having the awareness in that moment, how many people think that they are repeating back what they heard and they're totally off, or they're 20% off, and just the impact of that over time. So you heard me clearly. I appreciate that, Ilana.
And I just want to make sure that if you're listening to this and you're getting nervous about, quote, getting every word right, this is not about getting every word right. It's about listening deeply, witnessing with your full presence, and then, like I said before, reflecting back the essence of what you heard them say. You're never going to get every word right. That's impossible. Our brains can't just memorize literally every detail of everything, but you can reflect back the essence. And again, when you're word watching, likely what you will reflect back are specific words that they've repeated over and over again.
1,000%.
So, like we talked about earlier, often interpersonal awareness is very nuanced. It's not just about the verbal words or the verbal cues between two people that are surfacing or between groups of people that are in the space. It's about the nonverbal gestures, the tone, our posture. Are you noticing, like, what are the cues that the person that you're communicating with or the people in this space are showing you? And when you tune into that, there's so much wisdom there that will give you insight into, how is this person doing? What's needed here? What do they want? How can I connect with them from a place of where they actually are?
And I think one of the most important watch outs with nonverbal communication or cues is that you don't make too many assumptions, because a lot of this depends on who you're talking to. It depends on their culture, their background, where they've come from. And so in some cultures, right, a handshake or an embrace might be interpreted completely differently than other cultures. And it's important that we pay attention to who is in front of us without making assumptions about, oh, they did X, Y, and Z. And in my culture, in my experience, that means this. So that must be what they mean. Our brains are meaning-making machines, right? We are always going to discern and make judgments. And can we be aware of that happening in real time and remind ourselves to be curious? Right? Be curious about what you're seeing, what you're discerning, rather than suddenly making a judgment call about how someone else is showing up.
And that's why the cue detective, which is one of the practices that we teach in our master's program, is so powerful, because it's inviting you to be a curious observer, not a judger, not an interpreter, an observer, a noticer, right? You want to get so curious about, what's Sam non-verbally communicating to me right now? Like, I'm looking at you, Sam, and for everyone who is listening to this on audio, I'll just speak to it. But I'm seeing right now that he has like this little smirk on his face. Now he's laughing. I noticed that he has this, like, his shoulders are kind of in between, like, open and closed. It feels like I'm sensing he's comfortable, like he feels just dropped in based on what I'm seeing. And then he's like, his eyes are kind of like soft. Like, I feel like you're emotionally like happy or something like that. This is just me sensing into the cues that I am having in each moment that I'm engaging with Sam right now. And so the cue detective is just such a powerful tool that you can draw on in literally any moment when you're having any type of interaction, whether it's you and the person are talking to each other, you can still be paying attention to the nonverbal cues. Or maybe you're teaching in front of a classroom and you're putting on your detective hat and you're just looking around and you're being a cue detective. What are my students communicating to me through their bodies, through their tone, through the way that they're walking, the pace of their walking around the room or their movement, through their body language? And all of that is such critically important information that will support us as educators in being responsive to what's needed in the space or in the relationship or interaction. And so try on the cue detective. And honestly, it's not really a practice necessarily that you just do once a day or once a week. This is an approach that you can take on all the time in your relationships. It's something that allows you to bring that awareness to the interactions, to the relationships that you're having in each and every moment, so that you can connect more deeply with other people.
So that's interpersonal awareness, and so much richness there. That's really the foundation of relational intelligence. You can't do most of what we're going to talk about now without practicing interpersonal awareness. And so the second competency is empathy, and such a powerful beautiful competency, this ability to really connect with how someone else is feeling, how they are doing, and to be there with them and for them.
And one of the things that we've added in to our definition is it's not just about connecting to someone else's experience. It's about doing so while you are honoring your own boundaries. And especially for us as educators, as leaders, many of us as parents who are constantly caregiving, giving ourselves, supporting other people. I know for me, that's how I literally burnt out. It's like I had compassion fatigue because I could no longer connect to the experiences of others because I was depleted wholeheartedly myself. And this is why Sam and I felt so passionate about including that piece, doing the practice of empathy while honoring your own boundaries.
And what Dr. Brené Brown has found as one of the leading researchers on empathy is that the people who actually have the clearest boundaries, they are the ones who over time can be the most empathetic because those boundaries are clear and clean. And so to someone else that exhibits trust in the ability to go there with somebody, and because those boundaries enable them to sustain compassion and empathy over time, as opposed to just like being so fully with someone that you lose yourself. And that can be such a recipe, as Ilana mentioned, for burnout and for overwhelm and for just feeling so much that you can't really come back to yourself.
And so you have to be really aware in order to effectively honor your boundaries. You have to know, hey, can I actually show up to mindfully listen with someone right now? Or actually, do I need to regulate myself for a little bit? Maybe go get a drink of water, maybe go on a quick run, and then I'll be ready to hold space for someone else. Or maybe someone is deep in, emotionally expressing themselves to you, and something is coming up for you that might trigger or activate some previous trauma, and you gotta, in that moment of awareness when your boundaries have been crossed, be able to honor what's coming up for you. Yeah. And communicate that and give yourself what you need. And that is hard work, but that's what's going to sustain your ability to be empathetic now and in the future. And one of my favorite practices that we teach in our masters is called step into their shoes, because literally that is the definition of empathy. It's about connecting to someone else's experience. And back to Brené Brown, one of the things that I was trying to grapple with, what does it actually mean to step into someone else's shoes? I'm like, oh, well, Sam is telling me about this experience, but like I didn't actually ever experience the thing that he experienced. So how can I step into his shoes if I actually don't know what it's like to be like a man in the situation that he's talking to me about? Well, Brené Brown says it so clearly and beautifully that stepping into someone else's shoes, empathizing with another person, is not about you being in their experience in the specific situation of what happened to them. It's about connecting to the specific feeling that they're experiencing in that moment, whether it's Sam coming to me because he's disappointed about something. I've been disappointed before. So can I connect to my own experience of being disappointed? And from that place, I can understand more deeply. Or maybe he's angry. I mean, I've been angry, but it's not the same context, but I understand the emotional experience of that. So stepping into someone else's shoes is holding space for someone else to share and express whatever it is that they're going through, and connecting to the feeling that they are working through.
I remember one of my students when I was teaching middle school, name was Melvin, and I struggled with him so much the first 3-4 months of teaching. And the reason was at one, he was just disrupting my classroom, and he was the class clown in a lot of ways, right? And would not let me get through content. So there's a frustration there around classroom management. But really what it was I was struggling to connect with what was going on with him. I understood that there was something beneath the disruptive behaviors, but I was unable for a few months to go there, to empathize with Melvin and what was really going on with him. And I remember one day sitting with him after class and tuning in to the level of how much he struggled with not feeling like he was enough, how much he struggled with feeling unworthy. And I remember just dropping into that. And I have my own rich history of those kinds of feelings. And at that moment, I didn't necessarily resonate with the exact experience that Melvin was going through, but I could resonate with that emotional experience of feeling unworthy, of not feeling like I was enough. And it was in that moment that I had a real connection. That was the foundation of my connection with that student. And it just paid such dividends. It had such an impact on my relationship with him the rest of that year, because through that empathy, I was able to connect more deeply with him.
It's so beautiful. It's so interesting. It's in these human moments, right? Where we're actually letting go of, okay, I got to teach the content. I got to do all these things in my classroom. I have to get through the to-do list. When we actually take a moment to pause and see someone else for what it is that they are truly, and I mean truly, going through. That's where transformation in teaching and learning can actually happen, because our students cannot effectively learn if they are not understood. If they don't feel seen, if they don't feel heard, if they don't feel valued, if they don't feel like they belong here. And the only way, and the best way, that we as educators can reach those kids is through empathizing with them, is through holding space and truly listening. What's going on here? What can I learn? How can I support from that place of true understanding? And in order to do that, we have to be able to stay anchored. And that's another strategy that we teach within this competency of empathy, because if all of our own stuff is coming up while we are empathizing with someone else, or if we're bringing a whole different agenda or an emotional experience to the table while we are holding space for someone else, it's going to be very hard to actually be able to connect with their experience, because we can't let go of our own. And so having the tools to stay anchored, right? Anchored in your body, anchored emotionally, anchored in your mind, making sure that your thoughts are not taken over, right? That you're able to be present with the person that you're empathizing with. This is a prerequisite skill to being able to effectively step into someone else's shoes.
And empathy and the skills that we're talking about right now really pave the way for competency 3, which is repair. And we spent a lot of time thinking about this competency, because I don't know that you would think that necessarily is a competency in relational intelligence. But here's why we chose it. It's because when we think about how connection is so uniquely human, we're not just talking about any kinds of connection. Certainly, I think I saw some stat the other day, 40% of high schoolers have an AI boyfriend or girlfriend, Ilana.
Oh,
crazy stuff. Right?
This is crazy.
I know. A new world we're all living in, right? And I'm not talking about the connection that you have with your AI boyfriend or girlfriend, because I believe, and I know you feel this way too, that the real connection has to do with depth. It has to do with going through tough stuff together. It has to do with tension, in challenge, in disruption, and repair.
And I would argue, Sam, that the reason why all of these young folks are going to AI for intimacy, for like a partner, is because they literally were never taught the tools to have hard conversations with the human beings in their lives. And so what I have found, and I know what we've found in our own relationship and working through conflict, is that it's through the conflict. It's through the process of, having those hard, courageous conversations, speaking truth, even when it's not something that the other person wants to hear, tapping into our vulnerability in the hardest of moments. That's where, out of that, births intimacy and connection. And if our youngest people don't know how to do that, they don't know how to repair when conflict arises, then, I would go to AI and be like, well, let me go to something that it just isn't going to have conflict with me, right?
This is my biggest fear, Ilana. Truly, this is my biggest fear with artificial intelligence. And maybe I'm not thinking about other things, but I'll just name it. It's that young people and older people just decide, you know what? It's just not worth it to be uncomfortable. It's just not worth it to be in conflict with someone. I'll just be in relationship with AI. I'll take the easy way out because it'll always agree with me and it'll give me a more even-keeled experience. And the truth is that even-keeled experience where you're just yes-manning or right, just getting the answer that you want over and over again is a recipe in my book for disaster, for depression and anxiety and mental health challenges, because I believe that what we are all seeking truly is a more depthful type of connection that is only available when we do the work. And it is a gift, y'all. It might not look like it on its face, but it is a gift to be in that with our students and to give them those skills so that they can navigate conflict more effectively and build more connection over time. And so that's what repair is all about.
And I promise our kids are never too young to learn these skills. As a pre-K teacher, I remember I created this peace corner in my classroom, and I taught my students what I called the peace process. And this is also a strategy that we go way deeper in our master's program, and it's grounded in Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication process, which is absolutely life-changing. And so how this peace process works is there's 4 steps, right? Step 1, observations. You or the people that you're teaching are stating the facts that happen in the situation. And if you're using this in the context of repair, you're just naming what happened, the facts of it, without opinions, without generalizations, without judgments. Like, what happened in the situation that led to harm or conflict? From there, you move into step 2. It's feelings. This is where you state how you felt or how you currently are still feeling as a result of that situation. So I felt upset, or I feel frustrated or confused. And then you move into the needs. This is where, at least for me as an educator, as a person who's constantly thinking about everyone else's needs, I have the most difficult time with. It's like, oh, well, what were my actual needs that weren't met in this situation? Well, because of my need for, authenticity or connection or communication. And then the last step is requests. And this is where you're like, so would you be willing to? And you make some request that is going to support you and this person in repairing harm. So like, for example, let's just say, Sam, you were late to this podcast. Even though I was the one that was late, I'm going to pretend you were late. And so if I'm doing the observation, I'm stating the facts, and I'm going to say how I felt about it. Then I'm going to state my needs, and then I'm going to make a request. So Sam, when you were 5 minutes late to the podcast, I felt overwhelmed, upset, and confused because of my need for consistency, reliability, and respect. So would you be willing moving forward to be at least 10 minutes early so we can practice? And if you're not able to, just send me a text to let me know.
Absolutely. You got it.
Yeah. So that's the peace process, right? But it works with young kids. And right, when you took my pencil, I felt sad because of my need for communication. So would you be willing to give me my pencil back? Right. So you can use this. And the one thing when you're teaching the peace process is it's so critically important to model this strategy over and over and over again and to communicate it yourself, to embody it yourself in relationship with your kids. So I would model it with my co-teacher, all these different examples that were relevant to our class. And then I would pick a kid and have them do it with me. And then we'd have the kids practice together these 4 steps: observations, feelings, needs, and requests. And y'all, you wouldn't believe what happened. After 1 month or 2 months, I had 0 kids coming and tattling to me about, this person did this or that person did that. And like I did in the beginning of the year. All I heard was, Miss Ilana, we solved our problem in the peace corner using the peace process. And they would tell me what their solution was. We decided to share the bears, or we decided to that he would take a turn first and then I would take a turn. Completely transformed the culture of our classroom because I taught them how to move through conflict and repair harm using this powerful 4-step process.
And I think one of the most important things about this brilliant framework is steps 2 and 3 are all about feelings and needs. And we believe that underneath this process lives foundational needs that are often not being expressed. And then people have feelings about those needs not being met. And I remember practicing this with my secondary students and with colleagues and staff members. And if you can help people get to the underlying need, which can feel quite vulnerable, to say something like, I was really wanting more connection, or I was wanting to feel your presence, right? Or my need there was to feel presence with you, or my need was to feel more connected to you, right? That can be really vulnerable in and of itself to say. But if you can get to that, so much of the conflict, the tension can begin to dissipate if someone else is willing to recognize the need that you wanted to get met in the way that you felt about it. And so such a powerful way of getting at the roots of what makes us human and what we all really, really need.
And one thing I just want to name, because it is so critically important, is that the success of the peace process or the nonviolent communication 4-step protocol has 0 to do with how the person responds to the request. The person that you're communicating to can respond in however way that they want. That's their own agency. They can say yes or no if it's a yes or no question. They can, respond in a defensive way and maybe it brings up another pattern. And it gives you so much important data, important information about how you want to move forward in that relationship. And so this is really about the person who is communicating through that framework, through those 4 steps. And if you're explicitly teaching this, or you're bringing it into a relationship with a partner or a friend or a roommate or a colleague, then you can teach them the protocol of those 4 steps. And the person who's listening can play the role of the mindful listener. So then they can reflect back the essence of what they heard them say. Like, I heard you say that this happened and you felt this because of your need for this. And yes, I'm willing to do this and blah, 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 blah. Or, I can do this part of the request, but actually what I need is this. And so there's so many different ways to use this protocol. And the explicit teaching can be most transformational if you're teaching both the role of the speaker and the role of the person who's being communicated to.
Yeah. Such a powerful practice. I want to talk about one other one that we love here and that I would offer has been deeply transformational for me, just in how I navigate conflict and repairs in my own life and my professional experience. And it's this idea of holding both the intention and the impact. So often in conflict, there are two sides. Even if we don't want to see the other side, even if we want to act like we're right and they're wrong, or shame them or make them bad. Right? I've certainly been there. I know Ilana has, or I've been on both sides of this. The truth is that the path from empathy to repair is often being able to hold that there are more than one perspectives. And so to get into what I mean by intention and impact, oftentimes when someone feels like someone did something to them, right, or perpetrated some type of criticism or something that just didn't resonate with them, right? That's the impact that your words had on me, the impact of you showing up late, the impact of you, right, asking me to do something in a dismissive way, whatever it might be. That's the impact. That's one perspective. But the other perspective is the intention. It's what was the intention of that person who you had an issue with? What were they hoping to get across? And to me, the intention is always so important, because when we're able to connect with that, even if it doesn't totally make sense to us, if we're willing to connect to it in a non-judgmental and curious way, it can transform the other person from someone who's bad or did something totally wrong or doesn't care about me into, oh, wow, there actually was a positive intention there that I just didn't understand.
And I feel particularly strongly about this one. This might be a totally controversial perspective, but it's my perspective. I remember way earlier in my life, in my career, people were always talking about intention. What's your intention here? What's your intention? And then there was this like pendulum switch to impact over intention. The intention doesn't matter. It has no significance. It doesn't matter what your intention is, because you still caused harm. You made this impact. And I remember like buying into that narrative and trying it on myself. And it also felt like a social justice lens that I was taking on in doing that. But there was something about that process of only looking at the impact that my actions had on you, or that that person's actions had on me. That was problematic because it didn't repair the harm. It just created more distance. And so, yes, someone could be like, well, that was the impact. So, here I am in my stance. But I didn't see any connection come out of that.
You just nailed it with that, Ilana. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I remember when it was your idea, you came up to me, you're like, we got to do a strategy that holds both of those things, intention and impact. And I was like, you nailed it, Sam, because those both matter. Intention matters.
What you just named, what I love about what you just said, is that what it became is, just the impact matters. What that's about is power over. That's the truth. Right? Well, you did this to me. This was the impact. Even as I like say it, like just there's like an attitude about it, right? And I heard you say that too. And it's about, well, now I have power over you because you're wrong and I'm right, because this is the impact and I said so. And you know what, y'all? That might be true in some ways, but I can tell you this, that will never lead to true, authentic repair.
Never. Never.
And the antidote to that is to hold the other side, to hold this as a yes and, that there is an impact, and honor that. It is so important. And at the same time, there is someone else on the other side who's likely not a bad person, who had an intention.
One of my favorite parts of our human intelligence certification, which is the first module of our master's, is giving educators the space to acknowledge a situation where there's conflict in their relationship, and to name both their intention in that as well as the impact that they had on the other person. And it's transformational for them because one, it's like healing to know like, I had this good intention, but this was the impact, and I'm going to own that. I'm going to take responsibility for it in this relationship so that we can repair. And it's beautiful. And then they go out into the relationships and they do the work. They acknowledge this was my intention. And I know from what you've shared with me that I had this impact. I didn't mean to, and I'm sorry. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. Totally.
So beautiful.
And so this third competency, which hopefully you can tell Ilana and I are quite passionate about, paves the way for belonging, which is competency 4. And we would have been remiss in our master's program not to focus in on belonging, which is such an incredibly important competency and thing that we can offer to our students and to our communities. And so when we talk about belonging, what we're really talking about is the ability to create spaces and communities where every community member feels like they are, one, included, and like they feel that they can show up as their authentic self. And it's that duality of feeling like I'm included here and I can be my authentic self that creates the pathway to belonging in schools and in communities.
Oh, it's so good. It's about creating space where each person feels like they can share their authentic, beautiful self, right? And everyone's going to be so unique, which is why we have practices in our master's program called like All About Me. And this is really encouraging individuals to share about what they love, what they're passionate about, where they're from, their culture, you know, who they want to become, all of that. And you got to create space for people to share and express themselves authentically. And there's natural ways of showing up in community spaces that are going to orient where some people are more likely to speak out, to feel comfortable sharing, and others are going to be the quieter folks who are going to step back and listen because that's what they feel comfortable doing. And so at Breathe for Change, one of my absolute favorite strategies to cultivate a sense of belonging is called equitable sharing. And this is where you open up space for every single person in the community to have an equal amount of time to share in response to some vulnerable prompt that you're presenting to them. So you can do this in partners. You can do this in groups of 3, 4, or 5. So small groups. You can literally do this as a whole community. But the purpose, again, of equitable sharing is to have every person be able to bring their voice to the table for the same amount of time. Maybe it's a 1-minute prompt. Maybe it's a 2-minute prompt. Maybe it's 30 seconds. And for everybody to practice mindfully listening, witnessing, holding space, and building that sense of understanding and connection between them and the people sharing. And so what that kind of protocol does is it fosters a sense of belonging, because then everyone's perspective, everyone's voices, everyone's interpretations of whatever it is that you're talking about, they're on the table, right? And what we're saying by facilitating this kind of practice called equitable sharing is that your voice matters here. Not just the people I call on, not just the ones who feel comfortable raising their hands. Every one of your perspective matters here. And I'm creating the space for it. And we're going to listen to it all. We're going to soak it in, and we're going to honor and celebrate each and every one of your shares.
Such a powerful, equitable way of cultivating a space where every single community member feels like they have a voice. That's so much of what belonging is about, is, do I belong here? Can I show my authentic self? Will I be heard and seen? And to me, one of the most powerful practices that we have in this section is all around appreciation. And just so many opportunities in appreciation circles, right? Where you just give people the time and the space to appreciate each other, or one-on-ones via things like cheer peers or other forms of appreciation giving that just build that muscle, build that skill that, Ilana, let's be honest, we're all after on some point. We all want to feel appreciated. And to teach our students, and gosh, to enable our educators to feel that way as well, is just such a powerful thing that we believe deeply can be taught. And there's so many powerful practices to teach that.
For sure. And one of the best ways that Sam and I have discovered, you can create spaces for people not only to speak one-on-one to each other, but to speak to a lot of different people one-on-one, so that there is more of that sense of belonging, is through concentric circles, where each person in the community, you say, hey, everyone pair up, find a partner. And people on the inside, you're the brilliant people. People on the outside, you're the beautiful people. And we're going to create 2 concentric circles with the inside circle facing the outside circle. And then as the facilitator, you're going to introduce some prompt. Maybe it's like, what do you care most about in your life? Or what are you struggling to overcome right now? Or, what inspires you most in this class? Could be anything. And then each person gets a minute to share in response to the prompt. And then after they're done, you as the facilitator get to rotate one circle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right. You can build in some community building, have people high five, fist bump, say hi to the people that they're walking by, to, again, more belonging. And then you can facilitate the next prompt. And if you're a math teacher, your prompts can be about what they're struggling with in math, what they feel, is their greatest strength. You can connect it to the content that you're teaching, but that kind of structure of facilitating conversation between people, concentric circle. Again, everyone is speaking for the same amount of time. Everybody is having the opportunity to connect to multiple people in the community so they can get to know them better. And belonging will be a result. And all of this, ultimately, it leads to the 5th competency, which is connection. Right? This is where the appreciation, the gratitude, the intimacy that all of us want in our relationships, the depth of what's possible in relationships. This is what the 5th competency of connection is all about. And in our master's program, we've got so many acknowledgement strategies, gratitude practices, intimacy practices that help you all cultivate that deep sense of human connection.
In the way that we're talking about connection, as Ilana mentioned here, it's intimate human connection. And you don't often see the word intimacy in a master's or in education curriculum. And we think that needs to change, y'all. And we're talking about intimacy here as a depthful form of connection. If you break down that word, into me, I see. And that's one of my favorite practices in our programming that we offer to our educators and to their students. This idea that really what intimacy is about at its core is the ability to feel seen and to express. And so the way that practice works, into me, I see, is that you have one person who is the feeler and the other person who is the seer. And you give the feeler an opportunity to just share. How are they feeling? Right? You want it to be short and to the point, but to really tune into what's going on for them internally. What's on their heart? What really feels alive for them? And then the role of the seer, the witnesser, is simply to repeat back, right, what they are seeing in you. And here's my favorite part of this practice, is that the feeler then gets to rate the seer, right? 1 didn't really get me. 10 knocked it out of the park. And to me, right? This is not about getting 10s all the time. That's not the goal here. It's just information so that you can continue to see deeper and deeper into someone's experience. And AI will never be able to do that. I just don't believe that. This is something that is raw and that is human and that is deeply connected. When we talk about that Harvard research study of the 5 closest relationships being what makes your life fulfilling, what gives it meaning, these are the types of practices that we're talking about. And it is such a gift to be able to offer this to our students in an accessible, thoughtful, actionable way.
Sam, I don't even think our AI boyfriends and girlfriends could do this successfully.
I don't think so.
Should we try it?
Sure.
Do you want to be the feeler or the seer?
You decide what you want to be.
I can be the feeler.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll hold space for you, friend.
I'm feeling deeply purpose-driven right now and inspired.
I see how much you've put into this movement, and I see how lit you are about where we're headed.
Ooh, that was good. I'd say 9.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm feeling overwhelmed and heartbroken by everything going on in my personal life and my relationships that matter most to me right now, my family.
Yeah. I see you. I see your sadness. I see how intense it is for you, and I think like I'm just like feeling into. I'm like just seeing how much that is, Ilana, to hold, and also just like how I feel like how sad you are about some of that. You have to go through that. Yeah, I'm feeling that now for you.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's like I feel so blessed to be doing this. And then it's like my brother's struggling so much mental health wise. And I feel like devastated. It's like holding the both.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And we could go so much deeper, y'all, just on this practice, which is can be deeply moving and profound. And I just want to name, like, I've known Ilana for, gosh, a long time, my dear friend, like
18 years.
And it's like, you're not going to get to that depth so quickly. So mess up, be uncomfortable in this. Don't get it fully right. And as you practice these types of strategies over time, they just help unlock a deeper level of connection that you might have thought was even possible.
And one thing I just want to name, because I feel like this is so essential to this practice, because it can lead to conflict if this is not in this space, is the rating part, right? Being rated can lead to a lot of things for people, like being closed off. I'm rated low. What does that mean about me? Did I do something wrong? The rating, right? I've done this with Sam. I've given him a 2, 3, 4. I'm like, no, you didn't get me. You did not see me at all. That's beautiful feedback. And when you're doing this intimacy practice with someone, that number, the rating, like 1, you didn't see me at all. That actually is not reflective of what I'm feeling. Or 10, wow, you get me wholeheartedly right now. Thank you. And anything in between, that's great information for the person holding space to then be able to either try again, right? If I give Sam a 2, he'd be like, okay, let me try that again. Or to build more awareness for the partner of what they may not be actually seeing in the moment. That's such a gift. So don't take it as like, I didn't do a good job. It's data so that you can connect more deeply and really experience that level of intimacy that is the ultimate intention of this practice.
So many powerful and beautiful practices in this competency. And maybe let's just zoom out for a moment, Ilana, right? So we've talked about relational intelligence. We talked about effective awareness, how that builds to empathy.
Interpersonal awareness.
Interpersonal awareness, how that builds to empathy, how that builds to repair, and now belonging and connection. And I think like for me, relational intelligence is just so tremendously critical when we think about the types of skills that are important for our students today and in the future. And to me, what we're naming here deeply is that school is no longer just about academic performance. It's not even about STEM skills anymore, y'all. Right? That's where we were for a while, and those are still important. But with the advent of AI, there's a lot of other stuff that becomes even more important. And so in that space, yes, academic performance is important, of course, and preparing our kids, our students, our educators to thrive in their lives. To me, that's what relational intelligence is all about.
And Parker Palmer said it best. He said, teaching and learning is communal. And when we think about relational intelligence, that's what we're trying to say. It's about cultivating community, and it's through connection that we can learn, we can more effectively teach, and that education will transform for the better. So, Sam, it's been so beautiful to have this conversation with you. I cannot wait to come back onto the pod and just continue this conversation, because it could go on forever and ever and ever. So thanks, my friend. Can't wait to dive deeper and see you soon.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Bye.